Afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center, and I want to welcome you to our conversation tonight about motor vehicle accidents. A minor accident can equal a big problem. And listen, I've heard this far too many times before. Oh, it was just a little fender bender. Oh, it was just a minor car accident. I just touched the other person's bumper. It was just a little bit of damage done to the car. Well, listen, tonight, by the time we're finished with this conversation, I want to be able to at least get you to think about those last phrases. Because here's the thing. As we walk through this conversation, and listen, we're not going to bore you with a lot of details of the physics of all the studies on inertia and deceleration analysis. We're going to talk about the big highlights, the big picture behind what happens during a car accident. And I want you to recognize that in just a few minutes, I'm going to pause for just a second. I'm going to do that because in these few minutes, already one accident's going to happen. It's pretty amazing when we think about how frequently in the state of Pennsylvania people get involved in car accidents and how often they just simply sweep everything underneath the carpet, just push it off to the side, and they forget about the scars that are left behind. Listen, every force that comes into our body, whether we want to recognize it or not, leaves a lasting impression. And you and I only have two choices. Oh, forgive me. It's that time already. Somebody just got involved in a car accident. And in 4 more minutes, somebody else is going to be involved in a car accident. And 4 minutes after that, somebody else is going to be in a car accident. I know that thought is a little excessive, but in the state of Pennsylvania, listen, 15 people an hour are involved in a car accident that's actually reported in the state. That's how often this is happening. And like I said, we think oftentimes of, oh, well, just a little. But that little bit leaves scars behind. And those scars very quickly are forgotten about. Listen, when we're asked about, traumas and incidents, oftentimes we forget about 50%, 60% of the different impact injuries. And we realize that each one of those impact injuries, they put a physical force into our body. That physical force has got to be absorbed. It's one of those laws of science. And being the smallest thing in the car, you and I have to absorb that. So sadly, we realize that in the end, whether we want to believe it or not, these things are going to happen. The only choice you and I have is, what are we going to do with this information? And listen, my hope for you is this, is that at least you become more enlightened. At least you become more aware. And you take a look at the 5 steps that we're going to lay out of what's going to happen after you've had a car accident to make sure that you're doing your part to make sure that you're wiping away some of those scars, some of those damages, so that you're not adding to the pile of damages inside this body of yours that have accumulated over your lifetime. Listen, we can't change the past, but we can sure as heck change the future. So if this is what happens, then we need to make different decisions. Because listen, are these serious accidents? Yes. We live close to this road called 422 and 476 and 76. Listen, 95, we hear about it every single day. The car accidents, the injuries, the fatalities. Are they out there? Yes. Are they part of our lives? Absolutely. If you ever think that you are immune, guess what? We are not. We all have that risk, whether it's another car, whether it's a deer that jumps out in the front of you and in the roadway, it doesn't matter. Your body doesn't care. What is that thing that produced the force? All it knows is it has to deal with it. And listen, the way our cars are designed today is they're designed to actually stay together. I love watching NASCAR and seeing them race and go fast. And, one of the things is that if you ever watch a NASCAR race and you see an accident, that explosion that happens, the vehicle, all that force is carried away from the cage so the drivers remain safe. Well, you and I, unfortunately, that's not the way our car is designed. The way our car is designed is for us to actually have that energy internalized within the vehicle. The vehicle doesn't come apart, it all stays together. Therefore, it funnels that energy into you and I. We are the smallest thing, and sadly, we have to absorb all that force. But your car, it's designed to stay together so, the insurance doesn't have to pay for damage up to 10 miles an hour. But we know that our body, 5 miles an hour is all it needs in order to break bones. 5 miles an hour is all it needs to tear tissues. And the sad thing is I see this as I take motion films on x-rays, as we do what's called a Pennington study. Listen, we see that tearing, those capsules, those small ligaments that are around the spine, literally being stretched and torn because of accidents at 5 and 10 miles an hour. This is not a chiropractic thing. This is basic physiology. In other words, how your body functions. And the problem is that we're not oftentimes given the luxury of having all of that signal right away. In fact, most of us, if you've ever been involved in a car accident, and I'm going to ask you guys before we leave tonight, to just simply list, think about how many car accidents. I want to hear how many you've been involved in. Because here's the thing. If you've been involved in a car accident, the adrenaline, that endorphin release, you are flying high as a kite. Your heart is pounding, you're on cloud 9. And yet, when that adrenaline starts to wean off, all of a sudden, the pain starts to burn through. So for many, they don't feel pain immediately after an impact injury. They don't feel pain immediately after the trauma. It takes a day or two. And the problem is that, unfortunately, most people go and they do exactly what they're not supposed to do. Let me kill the pain. Let me stop the body's warning sign. In fact, I love the fact that, we have these cars. It's not like the 1960s and 70s where there's no lights on the dashboard. You got this thing, it's called a check engine light. There's a problem, it comes on. You need oil, the oil light comes on. Your body wants to talk to you. It wants to tell you that you have a problem. But what have we been trained? Take a pill, take an aspirin, an Advil, a Tylenol, a Motrin. Listen, we know what that story produces. It's like sticking your head in the sand and just ignoring the damages. It's like throwing a Band-Aid over that, the check engine light. Do you see it? No. Is the problem still there? Absolutely yes. And the problem is that 9 times out of 10, accidents happen to be some of those causes behind why we see so many long-term and chronic damages within the spine. The average chiropractic patient, 50 years of age. There are over 600 maintenance adjustments behind schedule. And here's the thing. When we add on top of it, catastrophic damages and injuries from car accidents and slip and falls and workers' comp injuries, we recognize that all of a sudden the insurmountable amount of damage done to our spine is absolutely incredible. And for many of us, we're living with 4, 5, 6, 10 different accidents. Whether they're major collisions or fender benders, it doesn't matter. So here's the thing. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. You want to make sure that you're taking advantage of what you already know to be true, which is that chiropractic is that thing that you can use in order to help your body function better. In fact, just a couple things that many people don't know is that as you're getting adjusted, those microscopic tears that are formed from that impact injury, they get to heal more quickly. We get to help to reduce that inflammation, which is fantastic. In fact, like many of you know, the very first thing that happens when you're actually adjusting the spine and removing those subluxations, you're creating motion. Well, sadly, with a car accident, there's so much force that your body wants to lock everything together. It figures, hey, listen, if you can't move it, you can't hurt it. It's true. That's exactly what it does. Your inborn intelligence knows if you can't move it, you can't hurt it. Now, is that good for the long term? Oh, the answer is absolutely no. Whether you're talking to a chiropractor, a physical therapist, or an orthopedist, they're all going to tell you the same thing. You have to have those joints moving. And those joints need to be moving in order to allow the tissues to heal the way it's supposed to. Without, the tissues are going to shrink. The tissues are not going to go through that healing process. In fact, as you're under chiropractic care and it allows for the proper healing process, well, we don't develop with scar tissue, which sort of looks like a mesh, joining together. But we get to allow those tissues to realign properly and heal without scarring. I mean, listen, we've seen how the weather can affect the joints. How when you have that scar tissue, unfortunately, whether it's arthritis, whether it's tissue damage or scarring, well, as the barometric pressure outside changes, it influences those scars and those damaged tissues inside. We want to make sure that your body heals as rapidly as possible. Like anything, yeah, chiropractic is great. It releases endorphins and hormones in the system, which allow for your body to have that natural chemical release that kills the pain. Now listen, we're never going to use chiropractic in the chiropractic adjustment like an aspirin. Because if we're not actually fixing and correcting the problem, then listen, why even bother? So in turn, we recognize that, as we get to allow for, that pain relief, that's great, but you need to make sure that you're taking that correction to its completion. If not, you're just leaving your body in that position to relapse at exactly the wrong time. Finally, obviously, chiropractic is proven to work. Listen, as 28 of the 33 principles happen to be laws of nature, these are tried and true. They work every single time. And I love the fact that, you get to take advantage of that. You get to take advantage of something that's not guesswork, but that's been proven again and again and again. And in turn, allowing you to experience that long-term benefit of restoring your body back to where it's supposed to be. Now, here's a couple of action steps. In fact, these are great takeaways from this workshop tonight. But like I said, I'm going to review the homework or what I'm going to ask you to comment on in just a second. I want to make sure that after an accident, you do these 5 simple things. If you need to write them down, write them down. Number 1 is you want to make sure that you get everybody's information. Whether you're talking to me, whether you're talking to an attorney, listen. You want to make sure that you protect yourself. Because here's the thing. You take your car in order to get it fixed. Yeah, from the outside, everything looks okay. But what happens when they look under the hood? What happens when they look under your vehicle and see that the frame is bent? Stuff happens. I've had vehicles of mine. They looked okay from the outside, and the next thing I know, it's thousands of dollars of damage underneath because it was hit exactly the right way. Don't make that costly mistake. If it's not needed, that's great. It's better to have it and not need the information. The worst thing that you could possibly do is have to try and go back and get it. Number 2, you want to make sure that you're icing down immediately. And when we're talking about icing down, because some of you, that primary area of concern is going to be your neck, you want to make sure that you're icing down your neck to reduce the inflammation. The wonderful thing is, listen, if ice is not the most appropriate thing, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get a little bit stiff. You might get a little bit sore. It's not going to create any more damage though. That's the awesome thing. Using heat on something that's already in flame, it's like pouring a little bit of fuel onto the fire and then watching it explode. Exactly what we don't want you to experience. So number 3 is make sure that you're picking up the phone, you're getting checked. Now listen, if you're not a chiropractic patient here at the Limerick Chiropractic Center, I want to encourage you to make sure that regardless of where you get checked, you get checked. Regardless of whether you're in Pennsylvania or California, regardless of Michigan or Florida, it doesn't matter. This holds true regardless of what part of the country that you're in, where you live, you need to make sure that you get checked. If there's nothing wrong, that's great, that's wonderful. If there's something wrong, fix it and correct it while it's fresh and new. It heals much more quickly. Because I'm going to tell you that number 4 is so important, is following through to make sure that you take the project to completion, which is improving those tissues. And then finally, the 5th thing is maintain. This research is out there. This research has been done. We recognize those damages sometimes, they leave permanent scars. They need to be managed throughout your lifetime so that they don't continue to worsen, they don't continue to cause you to lose the ability to engage in life. Not what we want to have happen. So I recognize, like I said, these 5 things are absolutely critical. Now, as I said before, I want you to just do one simple thing. I want to hear from you, how many car accidents can you recall having? So in the comments section below, do me a favor, list that number. So often as we do our consultations here in the office and our trauma history, patients afterwards, they come back and say, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot. I was reminded of this accident or that accident. I'm just going to ask you to record. How many of those car accidents do you recall being involved in? As always, I always ask you to like this video. Make sure that you leave your comment below. And thirdly, share this information. Listen, we all know somebody. Once every 4 minutes, somebody has been involved in a car accident in the state of Pennsylvania. Just while you and I have been here having this conversation, we have experienced 5. 5 of those accidents. The problem is that not everybody knows what you and I know at this point. And the more people who know how to make that better choice, regardless of where they are, only means that we're doing our part to help somebody else in order to make sure that they don't have to suffer because of it. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.